during the question and answer period. If you have a question, please raise your hand and make the question brief and to the point. Please join me in welcoming our speaker today, Sharon from Los Angeles.
Morning, I'm Sharon Crane, alcoholic. I'm still getting used to my new name. Thanks for asking me to do this. It's always fun for me to do my research. You know, that's what I love. I just love the writings, the old grapevine writings, and some of the books we have. We even read Pass It On last year in my baby meeting. It was like, we found a lot of fun in it. And one year we did the concepts. I have a baby meeting once a month, so we did the concepts. And we were always calling New York. It was fun. We were like little rebellious, asking lots of questions. So I like digging into the AA literature a little bit more. And so that's my fun. So thank you for that. And I just love so many of you this morning. You're my type of drinkers. You'd be miss an hour, I'm up anyway. You know, it's like, so this springing ahead thing can affect us. And I've got, you know, thanks to Chris and Barb here, I've got 3 liquids, which make me feel very comfortable, whether I open them or not. You know, usually when I crack the lid, I like always want to toss it. I have to help myself from tossing the lid of anything because I never needed the lid, you know. So we haven't cracked it yet, so I'll try to behave this morning. Anyway, you know, one of the things my girls that we do too is we talk about where we are and how we're trying to be part of the force for good a little bit more in the world. And it seems to come up that, you know, emotional sobriety is something that it's a constant struggle. It's a constant letting go. It's a constant, you know, it's baby steps. And I'm just so glad that we progress, not perfection. Absolutely. And I told you a little bit about me last night. I'm very independent. I'm extremely independent. I'm the one that I can just put a pack on my back and go somewhere and start over life, you know. Sometimes I'd even change my name temporarily just to have some fun with it. I still do that at Starbucks. Just to be bad, I'll give a different name. And then when they start calling out Cindy Lou, that's one of my aliases, Cindy Lou, and that's when I was 7. And, I go, where's my coffee? And then I thought, oh, that's right. I was being bad today. I forgot, you know. And so I'm you know, I'd like to reinvent myself when I was out there drinking, definitely, because I was never enough, absolutely never enough. So, you know, I just want to start with this. This is one of Bill's writings in Language of the Heart, which is conference approved. And he talks about his stability came out of trying to give, not out of demanding that I receive. And thus, I think it can work out with emotional sobriety. If we examine every disturbance we have, great or small, we will find at the root of it some unhealthy dependence and its consequent unhealthy demand. Let us, with God's help, continually surrender these hobbling demands. Then we can be set free to live and love. We may then be able to 12-step ourselves and others into emotional sobriety. And I love it the way he uses the words hobbling. You know, it doesn't talk about, you know, just kind of tripping. It's hobbling, you know, and you know, I definitely know that the one thing I have to do 100% is stay physically sober, 100%. You know, there's no line in the sand to move there. You either are or you aren't. So the physical sobriety is there's no moving that line. You know, but it's funny with alcoholics. I've known a few of us over the years. We have a tendency to kind of roll over that line in the middle of the night and go, oh, here it is. Yeah, no, I can act this way. And you know, I used the word this morning, it's kind of like tapering on bad behavior, little by little by little, that nickel and dime kind of a dishonesty. You know, Steve read it, you know, it's, you know, grave emotional disorders. But, you know, we can recover if we're honest. And it doesn't say that, you know, sometimes you're honest or once in a while you should be honest. You have to live honestly. And I had that line moving a lot when I was early in my sobriety. And I remember the first time I told a lie and I heard it. A lie I had been telling for 20 years. And as I walked away from this guy in our home group, his name was Ramon. He didn't speak English. He didn't speak Spanish. We didn't quite know what he talked, but everybody loved him, and he was kind of like anchored the room in the back. And, you know, if somebody said something he thought was, you know, a little out there, he'd just sit in the back of the room and go, really? He'd always, oh, Ramon, you better behave. Ramon's paying attention. He could understand you. He couldn't really speak it, but, he just had those eyes that seemed to make you, okay, that's right, Ramon's watching. You had to shape up. He was a great guy in our home group. And I told this lie to Ramon. I was in my first year, and it was a stupid lie, but it was a lie that was, we have to kind of get back to the root of things sometimes. It's not just the surface. Why, why do I keep telling this lie? Well, the reason I kept telling the lie, I found out, was because I never got to say goodbye to my grandfather in the hospital, my favorite grandfather, who my son is named after, who taught me how to fish and swear and spit. Just a great guy, and I never got to say goodbye to him. I was a freshman in college. He was 2 blocks away from me. I was too high. I was too loaded. I was down at Joe's place, and I didn't go to the hospital to say goodbye. And I felt really bad about that. From that point on, I had been telling this lie. And so I guess it wasn't 20 years. See, I just exaggerated there. So it must have been, so I was 17 then, and I got sober in 25, 26. I was about 26. So, okay, I've been telling the lie for 11 years. There you go. Corrected it. I just heard that. That's good. That's good. And he said, I like that watch. I had this, pocket watch I wore around my neck. And I said, oh, yeah, my grandpa, Wesley, my favorite grandpa, gave that to me. And I walked away from Moan, and I could feel his eyes in the back of my head. I could hear him under his breath go, really? And it's like, I just knew. Why am I telling this lie again? Why do I tell this lie? And I got to tell Ramon I'm lying. And I was so afraid. I think I circled the room, I don't know how many times. And finally I went back in front of him and I said, Ramon, I got to tell you, this is a lie about my grandfather. And he said, I know. It's like he never even let me tell the story. I know. It's okay. You don't have to tell that lie anymore. He didn't want to know why. He just said, it's okay. You don't have to tell that lie anymore. And so it was like I was set free from something. I was set free from, the pain of not saying goodbye to my grandfather and having to have something to clutch on to because I felt guilty and tell this silly lie about this watch that, didn't have any connection at all. And anyway, I was set free by hearing, by seeing, by being aware. And I was probably about 9 months sober. And that's the one thing I loved about Chuck. He used to talk about you don't see till you see, you don't hear till you hear. I can tell you there's books in that bookcase. And you'll go, no, there's not. There's no book. What are you talking about? There's no books in that bookcase. And then one day you walk in and you've done a little bit of step work and you're out of yourself a little bit. The blinders are off and you go, oh, there's books in that bookcase. And it's like, oh, thank God. And I love working with new people because you can say the same thing over and over and over and over again. And yeah. And then they keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. And then one night they wake you up at midnight because they've been at the coffee shop, Sunday night, midnight 1. I'm going to work tomorrow. What are you calling me so late for? Are you going to drink? No, but I have to tell you this. And they reiterate what you just had been telling them for 6 months. And they said, guess who spoke at Ohio Street? And guess what I heard? And it's like... And you want to say, I've been telling you that for 6 months. But it's just like, I just always, when they get it, I'm so happy that they get it. And they finally see, they finally hear, whatever it is that's been kind of working its way. And I just, thank you. Because, we never know where we're going to hear something or see something. And that's why when Barbara and I talked about this morning, when I go out in the world, I have to be, a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, whether you're watching or not. And I like to have sightings of people out in the world. I call them sightings, and I like to watch them a little bit before I go say hello. As people said, I was watching you before I came to say hello, so it's okay, Turnaround's fair play here, but I love having those sightings out in the world. And I remember being on a crowded elevator, and one more person got on. We're stopping at every floor. We're taking the local, and I'm late for a doctor appointment in the building, and so we're every floor. And the last floor, somebody gets on, and they're bigger than they should be and taking up too much room. And as they got on, I had to move back, and I got my toes stepped on. And it was like, oh, I was ready to go, and I literally, I had to just kind of like this. And as, people started getting off the elevator with different floors, there in the back of the elevator was this new guy I had met at the meeting the night before, and he tapped me on the shoulder, and I just thought, oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad I didn't go off, and because, everything, you helped me so much last night. Would you have said that if I would have gone off on somebody else who would say, oh, that person's crazy. I'm going to disregard anything I got from that meeting. So, I acted better than I felt, and that's been a lot of my freedom into emotional sobriety. Carl Jung talks about, I think it's in There's a Solution, about emotional rearrangement that he thought was very necessary for helping this alcoholic until he saw that we needed to have spiritual awakenings and spiritual experiences. But all of that awakening has given me some sort of emotional rearrangement. I drive in L.A. There's a lot of freeway and there's a lot of insanity, and you just gotta let it go. I mean, I'll be talking to somebody on the phone, and they'll be, "Hey, get out of my way!" And it's like, are you talking to me or them? And and of course you got to be on a headset. I say everybody who's on the phone in the car better be on a headset. No holding this or you pull over. Yeah, I'm riding, holding the phone, and doing my eyebrows all at once. But it's just you got to let it go, Betty. You drive a big old Mercedes, everyone's going to get in your way. But I was on the freeway one morning, and I was very calm and having a really good morning, and I had just done my readings and had my my little emotional sobriety morning with my meditation, and feeling really good about life and sunny day, and I'm in my car, and I get cut off. Whoa! Last night there was not one. So is that your new liver or kidney calling? Okay. Okay. Anyway, the new the car. I had my car, and I'm feeling really good, and it's a beautiful day. I think my windows were down. It wasn't even air conditioning time, and this lady pulls in front of me, and she cut me off to get on the freeway on-ramp. And she's a little old lady from Pasadena, blue hair, every little clip earring in place, every little hair in place. And I could hear her radio station, which was like elevator music, Something called K-Joy used to be a station we had down there, K-Joy. And it was all mellow music. And she's like in my way, cutting me off, not even going, can I, excuse me, can I, didn't even ask. And I just thought, how rude. And then I'm thinking, you know what, these people that are in retirement, obviously, should not be on the road between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. Yeah. They just should not. They should be like those big trucks. They can't go to work or they can't go on the road until the freeway traffic, till we die down. Us workers, get out of my way. And she just was in something like a Valiant. I don't even know if I could know that car. And she gets on the freeway ramp, and so I buzz around her. I'll show her. So I buzzed around her, and she's not even waving. No, she's just smiling. It's like, and I'm on the road, and then everybody's in my way. Everybody starts to irritate me a little bit. All those nice, wonderful things I just thought about you and the world are gone, and it's me first, you never, out of my way. And so I'm adopting that attitude, and I get to my off ramp, which isn't that far down, right? And I am sweating, and I need a nap. I'm tired. I need a nap. I'm exhausted. I can see my building, but I got a ways to go, and I need to turn around and go home and come up with some excuse. And I get on the off ramp, and at the red light, who's ahead of me? She's ahead of me. She every hair still in place, still a smile on her face, still listening to K-Joy, in her own little world, having a great day. And I just started to laugh. I thought, oh my God, look she didn't futz at all. She just stayed within and had a great time, and here she is ahead of me, and I pushed everyone out of my way. And I started to laugh. Thank God we laugh. Thank God we laugh. That laughter is deep and heals the soul. I remember the first time I laughed was about a dead dog story somebody was telling from the podium, and I had a few of those. So, I had one in the trunk of my car frozen in January in Iowa for a while, which is another story until my mother found me drunk talking to Tar Baby. It was just not moving in the blanket, So I'm laughing so hard in the back of the room, and everybody's turning around. I realize I'm the only one laughing about this dead dog story, and I can't help it. It got me, it's coming from my toes. So, that's how sick I am. But that was my first real gut laugh in Alcoholics Anonymous. But we've worked on it. I can laugh now at things instead of just when you trip or spill coffee on yourself. Those used to be my laughs. And I couldn't help myself, We're the kind of people that do that. So I learned something that day. There's an awful lot of ways to go through life. And I can either skin my knees and, purposefully. It's like life didn't hand me anything I couldn't have just gone, whatever, and let it go. I had to make something out of that moment. I had to have my rights. I had to demand. And, I got to see it that day. Maybe I'd been doing it for a while. And I see it now. One of my biggest meters is driving. I can really see where I'm coming from. And I'll even say out loud to myself, boy, you really aren't letting go today, or, you're not in a very good mood today, or what's bugging you today, and I used to wave at people with my one finger, and I don't do that anymore. I wave at them, and whatever I think is my own prerogative, yeah, sure, fine, go ahead, and I don't say it out loud anymore. And so I've becoming a citizen, becoming a worker among workers, becoming a good member of Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, this is where it started. It also talks in the family afterward about spiritual intoxication and going like off the deep end. But it's a lopsided way to live. It's you're so great here and you do everything and you'll give everybody a ride home and give someone your last $5 if they need a meal, but then you go home and you kick the dog and you bitch at the people in the home and, great, great. And I had lived in kind of that situation for a while, and I kept thinking it was me. It's got to be me. I got to do some more work. It's, because I kept it all about me, of course. It's not that this person is on a dry drunk, because he's in flotation tanks. He's not going to meetings. He's going to punk rock concerts. He's burning incense and listening to the Doors and hanging up beaded curtains. Might be a problem here. But, I kept thinking it was me. This was my husband when he had this kind of strange turn. And I threw some eggs one day at him. And, he just looked at me, walked away, and guess who had to clean up the eggs? It's like, I didn't hit him with any of them, and I had to clean up the eggs. And I had this... I was angry. I was upset. And, I'm not a very violent person, really, unless I'm threatened, really. I'm just not. And I was, he was punching walls, and I was starting to punch things. And I had to go talk to, hurt. I had to go talk to Don Newcomb in our group, who's an old violence guy. If you ever need a knife to break into something, he always has a knife. Legitimately break into something. So we always look for Don. But, he had to teach me how to keep my hands in my pockets. To just start there, just to keep your hands in your pocket. We didn't have the physical stuff between us in sobriety. I've had a lot of it before, and I'm a defender. I'm definitely a defender, and so I'm ready to go. I'm always ready. I always have that middle child attitude. Okay, got to prove myself. I'm coming in the room like this. And where I work today, it's so healthy. I'm in a healthy law firm. I know that's kind of what do they call that? It's like a paradox, or it's Yeah, thank you. And my boss is so on to me. He's so funny. He's all on to me, and he always starts every conversation when we have to close the door. He said, "This isn't a criticism. This isn't a criticism, And now we kind of laugh about it. I say, "Okay, I'll put my fist down," and. It's just, and this has only been in the last couple of years that I've gotten that healthy at the job place. I fake it. I know how to fake it. I can fake it in the world, and thank God that I know that my actions are what are important, because the head's caught up. The head has caught up. The heart has caught up. I'm a let's have a great time kind of alcoholic, so I'm like a happiness junkie. I'm kind of a joy junkie. I love to go to these conferences and fly high with all of you eagles, and then I would come home Sunday night, was like, oh, I got to go to that meeting and coffee commitment, and I got to get up and go to work tomorrow and put gas in the car, and all that stuff that most people do every day of their life, and they don't whine and complain about it, but I like living up here. And it was my second sponsor that told me, Sharon, it's like landing the plane. Oh, put your wheels down and land the plane back on the tarmac. You're not crashing and burning. It's like, everything was so dramatic. Everything all about me and self. And then it goes into self-pity and isolation, and I can't afford that. I used to have, I do better now, but if I had like a weekend off, husband or my boyfriend of many years, if he was like out in a golfing expedition and I actually didn't have to go speak somewhere, I think, oh God, I got all these projects to do and 2 days off to do them. And, by 4 o'clock in the afternoon the first day, I'm like, got the Haagen-Dazs and the spoon, I'm like, I'm looking for some sort of comfort, It's like, God, I just need structure. Structure keeps me emotionally balanced, Having commitments keep me emotionally balanced. Being responsible. I mean, that's one of my favorite quotes is that, we've been given this life, but then you have to, and I'm not quoting it right, but then we have to have the shoulders, we have to shoulder the responsibility that's been given to us, and that's so true. And am I going to listen to a crazy person? I'm not. I'm not. I seek out the calm in the room. I seek out the fun in the room. I seek out the ones that are doing it in the room. I'm, stark raving sober is one of the phrases you hear people talking about. And I'll help you out. I'll drive you where you got to go, but I'm not going to, I don't want to sit around that anymore. That's like being all jacked up on 2 pots of coffee or something. It's just painful. So I like to hang around with the people in the room that are having a good time, that are committed, that I see a smile on their face, that I see a lightness in their step. That's one of the reasons Clancy's my sponsor. After 48 years, he still has that lilt in his step. He still walks into an AA meeting happy as a clam. He's still out there doing it. And I've had sightings of him, like connecting at an airport. And I'm coming from somewhere, and we're connecting in Denver, and I see him, and he's on the LA flight. I'll watch him a while. And he's writing those 50 postcards he writes to people. He's sitting there catching up on those postcards he writes to people. He's taking the cart because he's tired. But then he sees somebody he knows, and we're walking, and he's not going to take the cart, But, I mean, the man goes to the mission. He's down at the mission doing what he needs to do to try to save lives there. And I admire that. And, yeah, he's a lot of bluster, and he's a lot of brilliance, but he's a lot of doing stuff when you're not looking. He's a lot of heart. He's a lot of, making sure someone's got groceries in the house. He's making sure that people have families, that if they're having a hard time, that rent is paid. He's kind of behind a lot of that stuff that goes on. And I think when I went through my divorce, I got a little thing in the mailbox, just put through my slot, and I had no money, none. And I had this little baby boy, and somebody had put some cash in an envelope for Christmas. And they said, this is for the Barker Baby Christmas Fund. And I know it was behind that. And, I never really knew, but the beautiful thing of that is I get to pass that on, that I shoulder that responsibility of what's been given to me to pass it on. And that's an amazing freedom. I've had other points in my life where, my demands, relationships, that's one of the biggest, hugest areas is to let you be who you are and to not get in the way of your own personal growth, your own spiritual growth, whatever you need to do. Because, I see a better way. It's like I'm not involved in it emotionally. That's why we have sponsors, because between me and my sponsors, like, a space. There's air. Between me and me, I'm on me. It's working. It's up, ready, sitting on the edge of the bed, ready to tell me when I get up in the morning. It's got great ideas, But between me and my sponsor, there's not that emotional craziness. There's not that emotional demand on myself. There's air, and in that air, there's God working. And I had that hallway that I was in when I went through my divorce, which was so painful, and the newcomer in the room, and Jill was the woman he married, and I was 10 years sober and having a hard time. And that's when my sponsor smoked pot, and I ended up getting Clancy as my sponsor. And I had every right to hate every single one of you, because you all knew he was having this affair. You all knew, and no one told me. And I was so mad at you. It's like, what's somebody going to tap me in the shoulder and go, your husband's, sleeping with that newcomer in the corner over there. Really? I asked him, and he said no. Okay. But life at home was really, really hard, and And I hated all of you, and I came in here, and I wasn't emotionally very sober that year, I'll tell you, but Clancy became my sponsor, and he was louder than my head, which was great. I did things like I cut my hair really short and spiked it up, so it was pointed. I mean, it was white, too. I dyed it like white, and that Madonna white at the time. And little spikes so that, and I folded my arms and sat in the front row with my legs kicked out so you'd have to walk over them. Because I'm here, I hate all of you, and I'm not leaving. Thank God for that. I mean, thank God for that attitude. It kept me in the room. You're just going to all have to watch me suffer. And this lady walked by, you don't hear till you hear. I mean, I was doing crazy stuff at 10 years sober so I could get caught so you'd know how much pain I was in. I was shoplifting at the Broadway. I would shoplift belts and things, and I would just put them on me and come catch me. Somebody catch me, put me in jail. And I had to give that up and make amends at 11 years of sobriety to the Broadway before they went out of business. Thank God they went out of business. I would be like, I don't know what I'd do. But I didn't put them out. I really didn't take that much. But that's the attitude I had at meetings. And all of my kind of healthy babies had to move on. They had to move on because I'm pretty nuts. I got really wacky girls at that time. Ones with eyeballs spinning, can't put a sentence together. Loved it. I loved it. I just put them in the car and we drive to Sacramento from LA to go speak at a meeting. And they go, "Can we stop and go to the bathroom?" I go, "No, we're driving. We're driving. Hold it." I was crazy. But the beauty of it is, especially the two most wacky ones are still sober today. And I still sponsor them. We laugh about that time. One of them said, "I didn't know you were that crazy." The other one said, "I did know you were that crazy." But so that's kind of, that was a really rough time. And I didn't have any emotional sobriety. And I was mad. And I was the victim. And I was in self-pity. And I was wearing that old victim cloak I finally had hung up and put in the back of my closet, because I like being the victim. It just works. There's no guilt. In victim, there's no guilt, and I'm an old Catholic girl. If there was guilt, I'd find it, and I got sick of guilt. And if you're the victim, it's your fault. And I was really good at it. And I was putting that old scratchy wool black victim coat again, and I was like, "Rrr." And this lady, Pat Hodges, who's not with us anymore, walked by me, and she said, she had somebody with her. She said, "Look at Sharon, do you want what she's got? She's got 10 years. And she kind of looked me up and down and walked by. I thought, oh, that wasn't nice. I don't even know this person, and what you should say to them about me, But I heard her. Do you want what she's got? She's got 10 years. Probably not. And then the night that my sponsor caught me, thank God, I was getting ready to kind of let it go. I had the keys to my ex-husband's car. I was going to go drive it at low tide on the beach and leave it. I had some plans. See, God was not in there. God had deserted me. I was back into being the victim. There was no healthy dependence on God. It was all in my sickness. And I didn't know I could get that sick again because I didn't get what I wanted, or I got hurt, or, life goes on. Poor me. And I was on my way to the corner of the room with 2 big hot cups of black coffee just because they were laughing and having a good Saturday night, him and her. And I didn't want them to have a good Saturday night. It was the hardest meeting, and they were just having a great time. And I was on my way with 2 hot cups of black coffee to see how they'd feel once it hit them. And I wasn't going to give it to them. I was going to throw it at them. And Clancy happened to be at the Saturday night meeting, which he usually is not. He speaks a lot. And the meeting had tables then, and so he kind of saw where I was going and saw what I had in my hand. I think he saw that wild dog on the freeway look that was kind of in my eyes and where my trajectory was to them. And he kind of got me halfway and took the coffee out of my hands and put it down and put his hands on my shoulders. And he just very firmly said, "Sharon, you'll walk through this with dignity and grace." And I didn't hear him there, but I heard him when he said, "So you can be an example to others." Don't tell me that. Just stop at the dignity and grace, because I want revenge and I don't care about dignity and grace. Look at me. Do I care? I don't care. But he said, "So you can be an example to others." And that's a very powerful statement to me. I take very, very seriously what you've given me. And I don't want to ever be the kind of example that someone looks at me and goes, "AA doesn't work. I'm going to go drink and die and break my mother's heart." want to be that. I mean, I'm not that powerful. I do know that, but I don't want to be that example of pushing somebody out the door with my actions. So I left them alone, and what happened was they got married and had a baby, and her little baby is 18 years old. Yesterday, I missed his little birthday party, and my son went, and I was invited, and we don't know where he is. They've been divorced, gosh, I don't know how many years. But the way I kind of worked my way out of that thing with her was she played softball, and I played on the opposite team so I could catch every single one of her balls. So she was a lefty, and I was first base. And not one of her balls ever got by me. And I got hit with, I would throw my body in the ground in front of her ball. If it went around me, it was just spinning. I could still pick it up, and so everybody always looked at me every time Jill was up. There goes Gumby, motivated. And but we had to do family time with the kids. My sponsor said, "You will show up, and you will not say anything about how nice she is when your son gets back in the car after their weekend together, and how nice that she was to him, and what he bought her. You will shut up. You will bite your tongue. You will not say it." And I learned to keep my mouth shut, which was huge for me. Huge for me. I'm a tequila drinker. I open my mouth when I want. And a lot of times people didn't like what I said, and I paid the price. But I'm a middle child. That's my character. That's my personality. I'm going to prove myself. I'm not going to, wait to get ignored. And so, part of that part of me that is a fighter, that part of me that had that Mensa sister, I got to call her up and go, "Thank you, Nancy, for helping me be competitive." It helped me be competitive, that Mensa sister I had to follow through school 2 years later. It helped me learn to be competitive, and that helps in the work world. Not competitive to the point where I'm stepping on bodies. I don't really care about that, but just I work with a lot of men, and there are a lot of smart men, and I have to sit in the conference room with me and a lot of men. And, sometimes, after the first 5 words out of a woman's mouth, it's kind of like, next, So I've learned how to be competitive and say my piece and be clear. And the rest of the time, I shut my mouth. And I literally have learned a clue. I pinch this part of my hand, so I don't say what I think I want to say, which is, "We've heard from you before. Will you please shut up and move on? Are we still on this topic?" Things like that. Let's get into the solution. We've discussed this to death. That stuff doesn't work in the world of business where I am anyway. So I pinch my hand under the table so I don't say it. And that's emotional. That's some sort of emotional sobriety for me. In the work world, they don't care. They want "Good morning, how are you?" And they don't want to hear, really. They don't want to hear. They want to hear, "Fine, thank you, how are you?" They want to talk about themselves. AA has taught me to remember their name, shaking their hand, and to let them talk about themselves. And if you walk away from somebody at a business meeting and you thank them by name, they think you're great. God, she remembered my name. They think you're great. That's it. Everything else is just filler. And you taught me that here. Even if I have to go into a situation where I'm really kind of nervous about, you've taught me how to fit into the room and be one of many. One of many. When I sit at my Wednesday night meeting, I'm one of many. That keeps me emotionally in check. I'm 31 and a half years sober in 21 days, but who's counting? And then, but there are people in the room, I bet I can count 20 people with more sobriety than me. And that's such a safe place to sit. That's another reason why I go there. Because I can just settle on in and look at all the people still ahead of me doing it and having a good time. Practicing the principles is, in all my affairs, I really work on that all the time. It's the beautiful thing is I can see where I can feel it now. I've had that awakening as a result of these steps. I can feel it here. Oh, that's a lie. Oh, that's not the truth. Oh, you've stretched the imagination. Oh, you better not say that. Oh, you better be kind. And I have one girl in my department that doesn't like me. And I inherited this department when the other person left. Even my boss says, "She just doesn't like you." I don't know what it is. It's like, good, validation. I think it's me again. Well, it is me in this case, and it's validation. So I've learned how to I have these beads I have to wear if I deal with her, and so I can play with the beads instead of, and she's not nice. She's not nice. And in California we have a lot of laws. You can't say things. You have to behave. And I've had to learn how to keep it on point and behave, and I walk away sometimes, and it's like, oh, my God. And I have to just bless her, bless her, bless her. I'm so loyal that I went to this job for, 5 years too long at the last law firm where it just wasn't working. And I kept going, okay, they're going to teach me how not to be. They're going to teach me how not to be today. I mean, that was my new mantra walking into work. And one day I walked in and somebody slammed me with something. The minute I walked in, I would go away on a weekend. They would pile work up on me till I have to stay until 11 o'clock at night because they knew I was going away for a weekend. It was just, and then I come back on Monday and the work would be piled up. Nobody would have done anything. I was just like, ugh. It was hard because I'd been there, 10, 11 years before it started to change. And one day I walked in and I went, you know what? I know how not to be. I don't have to be here anymore. But I'm real hard-headed. It takes me a while to see things. And, a lot of people have been telling me for a couple of years, I'll help you put your resume together. I'll help you put your resume together. And but I don't let go till I let go. I learned to loosen my grip. Finger by finger. Oh, yeah, that was painful. We loosened the grip a little bit, I loosened my grip. It's rare that I go, just take it, God, and come into my heart and life and help me change this. I'll be transformed from this moment on. I have to hit my head. I have to be embarrassed. I have to eat a crow sandwich. I have to say, I'm sorry. How can I make it right? I have to do that. I had to do that a year ago. We were eloping. It was quiet and secret. My husband and his brother and his high school girlfriend, who got together after years of his brother being divorced in Chicago, called, and the brothers decided to elope and get married. And I was proposed to, and it was, so I'm calling people, inviting them. I'm not asking anyone. I'm like, oh my God, it's a small little place and a small little wedding, and I'm like, and I know, my friend said, Sharon, you're just a big-hearted person. Yeah, it's just that I'm a big-hearted person. It wasn't like I'm being not very thoughtful with the other 3 people involved here. We only have so many seats in this tiny chapel, and I'm going to fill them with my friends, on this secret, private little eloping. I had to call one person back and pay for their airline ticket, and I was just, she still loves me to this day, but it was painful. And I wasn't thinking of everybody else. I got all caught up in that. Let's fly up here, It's like, I got my seat, who cares about you? This is my future husband, It's like, oh, God, that was a tough sandwich to eat. And I hope I don't ever stay so non-flexible that I can't eat a crow sandwich if I have to. But one of the biggest moments I remember, and this was almost an awakening, or an experience for me, was with my family, because being the only alcoholic, being the one that's a little bit more intense, being the one who always brought the party, the friends that I have now in my mother's house they're much more acceptable and fun, and she loves them. They're givers. Used to be the takers. Things would be missing from the house, or they convinced me to take my father's car and never have to see it again. Those kind of people were the kind of people I used to bring home to party with. But now my parents my dad got to see AA a lot of years in our home when I would go home to Iowa. I'm so glad. Because he looked at me one day and he said, Sharon, you got it made here. If you think about doing what you're doing before, think twice. As we locked eyes that day. It was really a great day. So, I had to go home and be a good daughter and act right no matter what. And it was my sister's wedding weekend. And I came on the plane, and I came alone, and I think I was about 5 years sober. And I had done the amends with my dad, and I was just starting making the financial. I had done the amends with my family and my mother and other people I needed to in Iowa. So I felt pretty good about going back there now. I was about 5 or 6 years sober. And they picked me up at the airport, and everybody was in the van. This is Cedar Rapids, Iowa. This has got a Hawkeye, Cedar Rapids guy. He knows all the check places, everything. I love it. Makes me feel at home. Yak Shabash. Yeah, okay. Dubcha, yeah. And I know how to swear, and that's about it. Grandpa Wesley taught me that, too, in Czech. But they picked me up, and I'm in the van, and we turn off on this country road because we live way out in the country, and the house I grew up in, I mean, it's just, I could always go home. It was so great. I'm so glad that I became an Iowa girl. I really did become an Iowa girl. Again, I healed that up. But all of a sudden I'm realizing Nancy Mensa's sister in the front seat, of course she gets the front seat. She's talking to my dad. They're talking about finance, money. She was brilliant with that. My brother's in the back talking to the new, son-in-law. They're talking about, they're from Alaska. He's from Alaska, fishing or something. My mother's talking to my other sister, the one getting married, whose weekend it's about, the dresses or the gifts or something. And I'm sitting in the middle section of the van, in the middle, and I'm hearing all this going on, and I think, nobody's even asking me how I am. Nobody wants to know about how is AA out in Southern California. I mean, it's like, are you sponsoring people? You're working with all, They just live their lives like that. And all of a sudden, before I realize it, I'm having a cathartic sobbing experience, where you can't stop it, and it's coming from my toes. And I am like leaned over sobbing. I've had a couple of those, once in an AA meeting, and the guy thought I was laughing, which he was happy I was laughing at his talk, but something happened. It was weird. But your shoulders are shaking, and I'm realizing, oh my God, and my dad stops the van, turns around, and looks at me, and he said, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And I thought, it's my moment. I've been waiting my whole life to tell him why I am the way I am. I could start with you, Mensa sister, and I could go right around this room, and maybe the new son-in-law would have something to tell him by the time I'm in the back, So it's my moment. The van has stopped. They're all looking at me, and I've been waiting for this my whole life. I've got the list. I'm sure I can pull it out in a second. And instead, because I was already practiced in the principle of prayer and meditation, instead of that, I just said, I just need some air. So they opened the van, and I got out, and I stood, because God said, shut up, Sharon. Just shut up. I mean, I heard that voice louder than my head, that intuitive tug. Just shut up. So I got out, and they're just back to their conversation. She just needs some air. They took me at face value. They didn't know. I've been waiting 30 years for this. Here I am. And I'm going to tell each one of you why I drank, why my life is this way, and why it's your fault. And I stood there for a while and contained myself, and I started to look at this amazing cornfield ahead of me, which, I grew up looking at cornfields. And I was so from Wisconsin, if I was out in the world, because I had that Midwest accent, and they had cheese and, dairy cows. They didn't have pigs and corn, so I was at least from Wisconsin. It was more elegant or something. So here I am in Iowa looking at that corny corn, and I am starting to calm down a little bit. And I was drawn into the corn. It was an amazing thing. It was, for a moment there, it's all green and pretty, and the top of it just seems to have a lot of life. There's always a lot of life around the top of a cornfield. There's little things buzzing. There's a lot of light. It just sucks up the sun. It pulls in the heat. Grows fast, and you can watch it grow literally in the summer. And I kind of turned away for a second, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw that it was all laid out in rows. And I said, God's got a plan. God's got a plan for me. It's going to be okay. I got to just see that, because you have to work the soil, and you have to plant it just right, and you have to have the right equipment, and you have to have the right seed. And sometimes you don't plant anything on it for a couple of years, and sometimes you rotate crop. And just for a second, I got that the whole thing was planned out, and God had a plan for me. And then I looked back at it, and it was just all kind of green again. And I felt some really great forgiveness. Some really great forgiveness for me and everybody in the car. And I didn't have to tell them. And I've never had to tell them, which is a beauty, because I would have destroyed everything that we had worked hard to get to, that Alcoholics Anonymous had brought into their life. So I think I want to kind of end on one of these So I've learned to grow up spiritually and emotionally. I've learned how to shut my mouth. I've learned how to pick up the phone and laugh with you, because by the time I tell you how serious this is, I almost got drunk over the color of a car. I was in my first year. I got the car. It was an old primer gray Malibu. And you had to my sponsor put a chair behind because the seat was broken, and I would low ride up to meetings, and she didn't like that. So she got an old chair that was broken from the meeting and put it behind my broken seat so I could sit up and drive. And I was waitressing tables, and I got Hank Johnson, God bless him, in the big meeting in the sky, sold me my car insurance. And to this day, every time I call him and renew my insurance, now they're thanking me for my 32 years of service. I think, right on, Hank. I mean, he came to my house, and he sat there, and he wrote out my insurance policy on his knees because I didn't have a table. I had a $24 a week room when my first apartment in AA, and I had a coffee pot, and I made him some Mr. Coffee, and we wrote out that insurance policy, and I gave him some money, and I felt like a citizen that day. And it's like that. He helped me grow up. At least, you need an insurance policy, I'll come over and see you. And so he knocked on my little silly door in Inglewood and came in and sat down, and I gave him some waitress tips that I had been saving for my first payment. And so I was all in this, I was all legal there in that car. And I called my sponsor and I said, I just picked up my car at Earl Scheib, and it's turquoise. And I didn't pick turquoise. I picked Basin Street blue. It was like a New Orleans color. It was wrong. Shouldn't have done that. And so when I picked up my car, I said, this isn't my car. And they said, that's the color you picked. I said, it's not the color I picked. Come look. It's the books in the bookcase. I said, this is the color I picked. I showed them on the wall. And they said, well, it's faded. It's faded. Drive your turquoise car out of here. It was 1976 or 76. Nobody was into turquoise cars then, I'll tell you. And especially a Malibu. It was like, oh my God, it was so bright you couldn't even look at it. You could pick it out of a huge parking lot shining over there. So I called my sponsor because I was thinking, I'm going to have a drink. I can't stand this. I can't, I'm looking at it. Here's Hobo Joe's restaurant. Here's Hobo Joe's bar, and there are payphones in between. And I thought I better call that sponsor and tell her, I need a drink. I need a drink bad. And she had me laughing. What'd they tell you to do? Not wax it and not wash it for 2 weeks. Come bring it over after you get off work. We'll wax it and wash it. We'll tone it down. So she had me laughing. And thank God I have sponsors louder than my head, so that I learned how to tune into that. I learned how to listen. It's a big art, learning how to listen. Learning how to be here, be now, and listen. What you need, what you want, what I can do for you. Listening is rough. I don't think a lot of us take the time to listen, and it's very quiet and joyful to listen. That's what I like to do. When my cat was dying, I had to count her heartbeats. That was what the vet had me do, was count her heartbeats every day. And I miss her. 18 years buddy, it's a long time. But that was our morning meditation in the last couple of months, was to count our heartbeats. It was a really beautiful listening thing. And then, of course, I have to count again because I don't trust myself. It's just alcoholic mind, never sleeps. But, I think about how my dad, how this beautiful being an example worked with my father, and paying back the money, and, getting to that point of emotionally being able to sit in a room with him and have a day together, picking out things at Menard's hardware store in Cedar Rapids, and going and helping him weed his garden, and just to be there for him and have that kind of peace and joy around my father was amazing. And being that example, not opening my mouth that day, not being in a hurry when they called me on the phone or when I talked to them, making the time to actually be their daughter and be there for them. And my dad, that had 12-stepped, because he bought the big book and read it. I told you last night, had 12-stepped this guy. That was the town drunk. He came to complain about his wife, Mary. And my dad said, John, you're an alcoholic. Go to AA. It's not her fault. It'll help you. It'll help my daughter. And I don't know if he gave him the book then or not. I don't know. But John is still sober. John is still sober. And the beauty of that story is I got to see where the healthy ripple is from the stone I threw in my father's life. I got to see the ripple hit the shore one day because a girl came up to me and told me at a meeting, my dad was dead a couple years, and she said, And I mentioned that little story, hadn't mentioned it before, about my dad 12-stepping a town drunk. And she came up to me and she said, what's that man's name? I told her, and she said, that's my uncle, he's still sober. And she said, I went home to a family reunion. This is in California. She said, I went home to a family reunion 2 years ago in Iowa, and that uncle your dad told to go to AA, he 12-stepped me. I have 2 years. And so you never, ever, ever know. You never know. That you're supposed to keep your commitments and show up, and maybe that one night you say something to somebody where you're saving a life. Just with whatever God put you in front of them for. God works through people. God works through love. God works through my heart. God works through my actions. So when my head won't shut up, my mouth can. Please, God, keep one hand firmly on my shoulder and the other hand firmly over my mouth. So a lot is what I say a lot of days. So that and that and the St. Francis prayer. So I'm just going to read the St. Francis prayer, and then we'll take a little break. I did good? Enough time? Okay, good. I put my glasses on upside down. So see? I still need a keeper. All right. Lord, make me a channel of thy peace, that where there is hatred I may bring love, that where there is wrong I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord I may bring harmony, that where there is error I may bring truth, that where there is doubt I may bring faith, that where there is despair I may bring hope, that where there are shadows I may bring light, that where there is sadness I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds, it is by forgiving that one is forgiven, it is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Amen. So we'll take a break.
Okay, it's now time to observe the seventh tradition, which states that every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. And as soon as we're done passing the baskets, we'll open it up for question and answers. And again, if you have a question, please raise your hand. Make the question brief. And it's an opportunity to ask a question, not an opportunity to share. All right, with that, Sharon.
Oh. Thanks, Chris. Sharon, alcoholic?
Yes, Sharon.
Okay, so I didn't think I have anything to say on that topic, and I talked a long time, so just wind me up, get me up in the middle of the night. I can give a talk, I guess. I don't know. But I try to be quiet in the morning. That's my good time. So I had to get up real early to have quiet time this morning. All right. Who wants to open it up? Question? Okay.
I'm Curtis. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Curtis.
Could you briefly kind of cover how step 7 you incorporate principle step 7?
Okay. We're going to talk about a little bit about the defects, huh? Yeah. Well, I think I have to get to the point of being humbled before I can see what's going on. So, when I did have, actually, I haven't had that many experiences, but I did have one with jealousy that was huge for me. And I really wanted it removed, and it didn't go away. And I thought, well, and it must be, as the prayer says, useful. So it's like, oh, I hate that one. It's got that little, part in it that says that, if it's useful, it stays around. And so it stayed around. And so I thought, well, I don't know who it's being useful to, but God did not remove it. So my husband now, he was being kind of stalked by somebody at one point, and I always think it's my imagination or me, and actually he was. And we were at this event, which was our group event, and it was like a big golf thing they have once a year, and it's at a mellow place, and it's a spa, and so the non-golfers can go to the spa and mellow out. And so she was there, and so in the afternoon Saturday, when it was kind of quiet time before dinner, she knocked at the door. I opened the door, and she's there at the hotel door and wanting to speak to my husband-to-be. And so I was like, I let her in, and I didn't, make a face. I let her in, and I called Casey over, and she was asking him. I went in the other room. I didn't want to hear too much. How do you get a sponsor? What step are you working? That kind of stuff. So I kind of went in the other little area, and I was trying not to listen. But when it was all over and she left, I came out, and I kind of got my evil twin came out. Because I told you what I'm like. I'm like this loyal Leo that I have to learn how to, loosely hold people in my life instead of grab on, because I'm loyal to you. So he kind of, it was really an interesting moment, because after I did all that and frothed at the mouth, there was silence. And there's nothing worse than silence after that kind of an outbreak. No one's getting mad at you. It's just silence. And as he kind of walked away from me, he turned and he looked and he said, Sharon, when you act like that with me, you really belittle yourself. Oh, yeah, really got me. And I just thought, man, I am giving way too much power to all of this. And now I'm looking like belittle. Let me go. I don't like the way it feels. Let me go look that up. I knew it wasn't good. And so we took a drive. I said, can we just go take a drive? And so we took a drive, and it happened to be that day a full solar eclipse. So it wasn't a big day to have a spiritual awakening or anything. It was, and right where we were down by San Diego, we went up on a hill and, looked through the thing that we can look through, because you can't look at the sun. It's like when your kids don't look at the sun. I know. It's just, don't tell alcoholics not to, don't jump out of the car. I'm at the edge of a cliff, my head's saying jump, jump, just all of that stuff with alcoholics. So at the top of the hill that we stopped, and it's a full solar eclipse, and I just felt like everything that, I felt so like I had just dug my grave here. And I just felt so sad for me and God. And it wasn't even a self-pity thing. I just felt really sad that came into our relationship together, and that I brought the crap in. And so right there, I said the 7-step prayer at the top of the hill. And you know what? It was removed. I can't say it's not going to come back and rear its ugly head, as it talks about. But that's one of my experiences where it was removed. I think we get one maybe in our lifetime. We get one. We get one pulled out of us, and the rest is useful and progress, not perfection. So I hope I helped. I saw, yeah.
Carl,
yes, Carl.
I guess I kind of struggle with this. The steps are pretty much outlined 1 through 12. And in step 12 it says, we practice these principles. What are the principles? I can look at step 10 and 11 where you're doing, but what? I know I don't know. It seems like a complicated question, but like practice these principles. Like, is there 12 principles, or is there 3 or 4?
Well, yeah, the principles. I don't know where they're written down, and probably somebody that's more of a book person, but it's, I had gotten a 12 and 12 from an old timer, and at the top of each step she wrote like awareness, acceptance, perseverance, charity. There are 12 principles that, do you know, Paul, where they came from? I don't know where they came from, but it's, handed about in AA since I've been here. There are, they have different names sometimes. Instead of charity, they'll say love, but I don't know where the principles are. Do you know where they came from?
Well, most of the old-timer tapes I have got named for the principles.
Okay, so
and
just
it's called the steps.
right.
I mean, yeah, the spiritual awakening is a
Result of these steps, right? Right. Yeah, I mean that's that basic, really. But they I think out of the four absolutes came different things, and old timers kind of named something with each step, So.
Yeah, because I would look at them and I break down the steps and go, is there a principle here?
Of course there is.
With
Yeah.
step 1 and step 2, and I just wondered if there was a list.
There is a list, and they put it on bookmarks, and they put it, on other things, and there's workshops done on the principles, and on each step. I mean, it's surrender. Hello. I mean, it's not rocket science, really. But when I go out in the world, am I going to, act like a decent human being, or am I going to not act like a decent human being? And what does that entail at the moment? I mean, it's easy to do the easy stuff. It's a little harder to go see someone at midnight. It's a little harder to invite someone to sleep on your couch. It's a little harder to have someone vomit in the backseat of your car. It's a little harder to rally around somebody who, you have to figure out what to do because she's going home to a situation where she's going to get another black eye, So, I mean, it's easy to do the easy stuff. I think, to me, just walking into life and into the world and trying to be aware. Just trying to hear what I need to do and to see what I need to do, But yeah, I don't know. I asked somebody that question a few years ago. Where did these principles come from? And they were, where did sponsorship come from? That's a story about some guy in Schneider, right? Clarence Schneider, and that's a fun old story. So, if you find out, will you let me know? But as Paul says. It's pretty simple. It's just the steps. I mean, what does it mean to you? What does step 3 mean to you? Wow. What does step 4 mean to you? Getting honest? Fearless? Hard. We lived our whole life based on fear. Now it's some sort of basic spiritual principles that can translate into any language, which is love. Love and giving. We can do I love that Mother Teresa said we can do no great things, only small things with great love, and I try to remember that. It's great love to feed my cats in the morning. It's great love to walk my dog. It's great love to kiss my son goodbye even though he's sleeping. He's 22. It's great love to have food ready when my husband comes home that he can just warm up. It's great love to have somebody at work that looks like they're having a bad day, go take them for a cup of coffee. It's great love to call someone because you're thinking about them. Just say hi and not make it about you. It's just, small little things with great love really fill my day, every single day. I thought you had your hand up, Deborah. You're itching your head? You know what that happens in school. Sally.
Hi, my name's Sarah. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Sally.
Can you talk some more about your honesty and your feelings? You kind of touched on that, how to be honest in your feelings without, for me, putting my left foot in my mouth.
Honest with your feelings without putting your foot in your mouth. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I think I shouldn't say it, I usually shouldn't say it. That's.
If I think it, that's.
Oh, yeah, well, see, that's the beauty of not being, identifying with my mind anymore. I don't identify with my mind anymore. I identify with the person I identify with what I do. And by identifying with what I do, the beauty of that is eventually I get all these new habits formed in my mind. And so, I can tell when I'm feeding that gremlin after midnight, I can tell when I'm taking it out to play with it that it's going to multiply, And a lot of the time it's just, the first year of my sobriety, the first couple of years of my sobriety being a waitress, my sponsor literally had me open the trunk of my car and put my mind in the trunk of my car and then go punch in work because I was so arrogant at work. I didn't know it was arrogance. I'm a bartender. I'm not going to wait food. What do you want? I'm having a bad day. Who cares? You want some eggs? Scrambled? Okay, good. I was not nice, and I didn't make good money. And so my sponsor said to put my mind in the trunk of my car and just be polite and don't say very much and smile a lot. And my life got better as a waitress, a lot better. So I literally had to take my mind out of the trunk. She had to go around and open my trunk, and then I could call her on my, I got home. How was your day? It was great. Would you take your mind out? Yep. You put your mind back? Yep. Okay. What's your mind saying? We kind of laughed about it. But the security guard didn't know what I was doing that whole time I worked there. Just kind of looked at me like, okay, yeah, that's her again. It was at a big hotel, and I always went in the security entrance, and he'd always just kind of look at me like, oh yeah, good morning. Mm-hmm. But we come in here, we can talk about things that we can spill our guts here. I mean, we laugh about things and talk about things that out in the normal world. Try it sometime over the fruit at a nice market when you have to all pick out you have to pick out peaches. That's a good one. Or apples. People take their time picking them out. Somebody says, how are you? Why don't you tell them? They don't want to see you the next time they're in the market. They're going to move away very quickly. She looks okay, but don't talk to her. Yeah. So I've learned how to be appropriate. I was raised with manners, so it wasn't so hard to go back having manners. But it's that selfishness, self-centeredness, and I've got to get it, and it's got to come out. No, it doesn't. You need to call someone and talk to them. I mean, if I'm current with my sponsor, I'm okay. And I can shut it off at night by putting earplugs in my ears. Then my head gets quiet. It's interesting. That's how I can sleep. I have to always put earplugs in. It makes it shut up. But, I am not, I don't identify with my mind anymore. That is not who I am. I laugh about it, but it is not who I am anymore. Because that's very alcoholism centers in the mind, and it never sleeps. Cunning, baffling, powerful, and patient. So, yeah, I don't play with it. I don't go take that bad action, not tell anyone, and then, okay, I've moved the line in the sand, I can take another bad action. Okay, look, nothing happened to me yet. Okay, good, I can take another bad action. And then pretty soon I'm $50,000 in debt. I'm divorced, I have no money, and I'm plopping down the credit cards like they're fun. It took me 10 years to pay that off.
What do you do today when the evil twin wants to start playing? If you're caught in the spot, like with a fellow employee or, I guess, somebody that you're in daily contact with, where all of a sudden the evil child wants to come out and say,
yeah, I've done things like saying, let's start this conversation over. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. Or, I'm going to go and I'll be back in 5 minutes. I mean, can we talk about this after lunch? I didn't mean to say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. That came out wrong. Let's start again. I mean, with you guys, I can go, that was not right. That was not accurate. And you go, okay, fine. But in workplace, sometimes it's the less said, the better. But, it's like body contact. I'm at my computer like this. It's bad feng shui in our office. And I've had, people come talk to me. Yeah. It's very rude. Turn around and give them my attention. I mean, first of all, it's the body contact in the workplace. It's standing there still. It's not fidgeting. Even if I'm trying to listen to what you're saying, if I have to write down what I have to do, I'll write it down, instead of getting back to my office. What'd you say again? Emailing you. What'd you say again? It's like, what am I supposed to do? It's like, pay attention. They want you to work. They don't care. Leave it in the trunk of your car. And if she follows you in, cut it off and take her back. Hide her in the bottom drawer. Serenity prayer, awareness. I used to say the serenity prayer all the time, and it was short form. It was F it. That's the way I could let go. Okay. Yep.
Hey, Al.
Hi, Al. Hi, Al.
Wondering if you could illuminate the 12th step, working with others. Sometimes I struggle with the pitch, or if there is an A pitch. Just talking to newcomers beyond how are you doing, how much time do you have, taking the conversation to the next step.
So you're talking about carry the message part of the 12th step? We talked about those principles that we got to go find before. Okay, you just want to know about how do you take your 12-step work to the next level with somebody?
Yeah, I guess so. Sometimes I struggle with going beyond small talk.
Oh yeah, that whole chapter in the big book really breaks it down really beautifully. Totally breaks it down beautifully. With where we need to go and how we don't preach and how we don't judge and how we share from our heart. And I'm so glad that all of that's in there because and the thing with new people is you got to go to some more meetings with them. I mean, if you're down to 3 a week because that works for your schedule, and you tell them you got to go to a couple that's when it gets oh yeah, I don't have my Tuesday night at home alone, or all my calls come in on Thursday, or you gotta that's where you got to show up with them. You got to show them where it is. You can't just tell them. I was told a lot of things. I had no respect for that growing up. People that want to tell me how I should live my life and this potential and how I should not do this so I can get to that. And I didn't have any identification with them. But when I got to you and you guys were showing me, you weren't telling me. That's kind of kicking it up to the next level for me. That's when it gets a little bit harder to do. Kind of cuts into your time. But when you see that person 6 months later and they walk into the room and their lights are on, it's like, wow, I had nothing to do with that but take them to a meeting for the first couple of weeks, and then they show them where the light switch is on me and that's in there on you somewhere, and they find it themselves. It's nothing more awesome to see God work like that. I love sitting next to people. Poo-poo the word miracle, but I'm sorry. I mean, it's not in a big way, but we are little miracles, really, and I honor and respect that because God has entered into our lives in ways that are indeed miraculous, it says. It's my favorite little phrases. So, talk is cheap. Show them. The 2 names.
Amy Beth.
Amy Beth. Hi, Amy Beth.
For some reason, I was thinking resentments and then fear popped in, but how do you deal with, you personally, what kind of steps do you take when you know that either a resentment or a fear, I mean, obviously we're feeling it, so it's valid, but that it's something you want to move through? What kind of steps do you take that do that?
So if you've got a new one coming up? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
I don't have one right now.
Oh, okay. Let's tell the room that you're fine. You're cute. Well, I mean, if I can't let go of it right away and it's keeping me up at night, I'm still a little bit of a pit bull with what I hang on to sometimes, and I have to tell on myself. That's where it has to start. I have a handful of people that know where I am every time. I have my sponsor and I have 4 other women. So I have those 5 people that know what's going on in my life at any given time. And so I can call, I can reach one of them. And I tell them myself. And then, do I need to do some writing on it? We'll discuss that. Do I need to make an amends? Is this all about me again? Is this a pattern? Is this another one of those patterns? It's like you think you've clipped them off of your shoulders and they just come back on you. And it's like, but the beauty and the fun part is that to observe myself and go, I can't believe you're just totally acting like this right now. I really step away and look at it, and then I have some choice to pull it in and stop it. I mean, I do. I stop conversations midstream sometime with, I'm sorry, that's not the whole truth, or it's not like this. And I love my husband. In some ways, we're so different. He is such a good, specific communicator, because I go home and and I'm on all 18 different levels, and he'll just go, okay, now, which Linda? I mean, we know 8 Lindas here. Let's use last names and start there. Okay, so, I mean, I have to respect how he thinks, too, to have some sort of a conversation with him. He's helped me a lot. What is it, a spider? My son's don't kill it. No. Okay, go. Thank you for saving a spider. My son makes me take them out of the house. He's spider boy, so I let her. I pick them up.
few that are poisonous.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for saving my life, Barb. I had no fear. Did you see that? I had no fear. No fear. That was good. That's good. I didn't see a thing. What was there, Barb? Oh, okay. So anyway, there's a handful of people that know at all times, so that I can call them. I can stop my behavior. It really is. We're so close to each other, and I mean, we're only phone calls. I mean, this is cell phone. This is text messaging. This is, need to see you right now, meet you at Starbucks or whatever. I mean, there is no excuse for isolating. There is no excuse for hanging on to it, unless you want to feel bad. And you know what breaks my heart? And people have done that with me, too, to watch people want to feel bad. I have to let them feel bad until they're done. And they go, okay, I know you worked through this. Can you help me with this? My second sponsor said that I'm like the girl in this meeting. This girl, crazy girl in our meeting. She's not here. She's not alive anymore. She was sober, but crazy. She had a tracheotomy. She used to clean it out with a pencil in the bathroom and blow on the mirror. Oh, my God. Yeah. It's like, then go shake her hand. All right. Yeah. But she stayed sober, but she was pissed off. That's where her voice was. I don't know. That's opinion. But she said, you remember Sandra? And I went, yeah, I remember her. I said, do you remember how she used to, walk around? I said, no. I said, okay, that was before your time. She would walk around. She had this thing, and she'd look at it, put it in her pocket. She'd take it out and look at it, put it in her pocket, then blow on her thing. And she said, one day she trusted me to see what was in there, to look in there and I looked in her hand. She had, an old dried-up turd, like a cat turd or something, like an old dried up turd. And I thought, I remind you of her. It's like, she said, yeah, you do remind me of her, that you hang on to these things that don't mean anything. They're old turds. And I remember looking at her with every bit of sincerity, and I said, I know, but it belongs to me. My turd. Get your own. So that's how I loosen my grip on things. Usually with a slam dunk from a sponsor, or a slam dunk with a faux pas, or when I just, that's the way I grow. I don't grow I don't have to beat, you can beat yourself up. You can be, you can wake up one morning and go, oh, I think I'll work on my resentments and jealousy this morning. I mean, who wakes up like that? I don't. I have to have it shown to me, usually. But I don't have to be so beaten up anymore. I don't get off on that anymore. There's too many solutions and too many people that have walked through it. That's the beauty of a home group. That's the beauty of coming in here and letting people see, your butt hanging out a little bit. Because then you're watching them, God, they made it through. Look at them. Because then, a year from now, that newcomer's got, hey, someone here went through the exact same thing. I mean, we are a community about saving each other. So, okay. All right, we'll have a guy.
I'm Joe, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Joe.
You mentioned last night you knew Chuck C. And I remember reading a new pair of glasses and him saying, some guy asking him about inventories and him saying, you do one step forward, and that's what the follow-up, but that's what step 10's for, continuing to take personal inventory. And I just wonder, and I know there's a lot of you've been around for a while, did a lot of old-timers do it that way? Because they talk about peeling the onion, and I know guys personally, every once in a while, will go through the steps, on a specific issue, or, after a period of sobriety, new things pop up. But I'm just kind of curious, what your view was on that, as far as the steps go, as far as doing an inventory every once in a while, working through the steps, or continuing to take personal inventory and just doing one big inventory. Did a lot of old-timers do it?
Well, it says promptly in step 10. Promptly admit it. It doesn't say think about it for a year. And I didn't really know Chuck C. I mean, I got to hear him speak and stand by him and have him show me where God was and things like that. But a new pair of glasses is not conference approved, but it's a great book. And he was, a pretty amazing man in that he gave back a lot of his spirit, to us in those smoke-filled rooms where you couldn't see anybody, and just an opinion, emphysema killed him. So every night he was in those rooms, breathing our smoke. I'm not going to split hairs with you. I'm not. I mean, there's nothing like my first fourth step. It was the first time I ever did anything like that hard, ever. It was the hardest, biggest thing I had done, ever. And I almost ran from it, but ever. So there will not be another experience like that first one. because it was perfect for where I was. And, as I go through life, when I finally gave up the keys to the car, and my sponsor said, you'll walk through this with dignity and grace so you can be an example to others, which Jill, when he left her, came to me later and said, I knew I could walk through, being cheated on and being left with a baby boy because you had done it. And so, it's none of my, I don't get to pick and choose who gets my experience at all. But, I had to go back and write a pretty thorough one at the time about what was going on and look at my part. I mean, when I'm betrayed, it's not me at all. It took me a long time to see my part in the end of that marriage. And he was very wise to have me do that. And then he was very wise. We work with their sponsor. He was very wise to have me sponsor this girl who got caught with somebody in the program. Marriage ended. She was much like the other woman. And my sponsor called me up one day and said, I'm going to have this girl from Kansas call you, and you're going to sponsor her. I said, no, I'm not.
I have always been afraid of changes, but you show me life is full of faces. Sometimes clouds got in our favorite places, but we were young and unaware.